We've seen enough. Noah Laba must make the Rangers opening night roster.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1388 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers, just a short time ago, another third period meltdown. I mean, what else can we call it? They've got a multiple goal lead with about 13 minutes or so to go in the game. They not only lose, as they did against the Bruins in a somewhat similar situation, but they lose this one in regulation by giving up 3 goals down the stretch in this game. It's unacceptable, and we will get to that in due time a little bit later in today's episode. But you know what? I wanted to start with something awesome tonight, and I figured I would be doing this after a win because the Rangers, just like against the Bruins, this game against the Islanders had everything working for the first 40 minutes, looked great through the first 2 periods, and then fell apart in the third period. And again, we'll break down that disastrous third period in due time here, but I want to start by talking about Noah Laba. Noah Laba has been fantastic. He has really caught the attention of Ranger fans. If you go on social media, everybody's buzzing about him right now. Everybody's excited. Everybody wants to see him make the Rangers opening night roster and be out there centering the third line on opening night. And if you have watched the preseason, if you watch that rookie series against the Flyers as well, it's not too difficult to see why that certainly is the case. It's funny because throughout the entire offseason, the entire preseason, one of the things that we're naturally going to do on here, and one of the things that anybody that's interested in the Rangers is going to be doing, is trying to figure out line combinations, defense pairings, power play units, penalty kill units, all that good stuff. Who's going to make the team? Who's not going to make the team? And one of the most talked about alignments or potential alignments for the Rangers has been what they should do when it comes to their centers, and specifically what they should do when it comes to Mika Zibanejad and JT Miller. Should Mika be on the wing with JT Miller to try to continue the success that duo had at the end of last season? Or do you put Mika back at center and you have him center his own line? And when you do that, you've got more center depth. And there's a case to be made both ways, and we've looked at this several different times. The reason I bring it up now, though, is because the one drawback, the one I thought major negative to putting Mika with JT Miller, even though this is what I favored, I could still acknowledge this negative, was that if you put Mika on the wing with JT, then that leaves a massive gaping hole when it comes to your third line center. You're basically left with either Johnny Brodzinski or Juuso Parssinen. And no disrespect to either of those two players. I mean, hey, if one of those two were to get the job, it's at least possible that they could hold it down and do a decent job in that role. But there's no obvious candidate, and there's certainly no obvious long-term candidate for the Rangers when it comes to third-line center. Enter Noah Laba. He has been fantastic. We've got a new candidate. He has certainly thrown his name in the hat, so to speak. He's been great. The term that I used on Twitter a little bit earlier tonight watching this game is that Laba basically looks like he's been fired out of a cannon on every single shift. North-South hockey, and faster than I realized, too. Maybe I didn't realize how fast he was, or it just hasn't stood out to me all that much. I mean, he looks like a man on a mission every single shift. This kid gets in on the forecheck about as quick as any other player on the New York Rangers. I mean, he's in there every time and never misses the opportunity to deliver a hit when he's on the forecheck as well. Never misses a chance to battle for the puck in such a situation either. He's been great. He's physical, fights for pucks all the time. Good stuff all around. And now up to 4 assists for Noah Laba in the first 3 New York Ranger preseason games. And what a play he made on the goal that was scored by Brett Berard. I mean, this is like video game stuff or Instagram hockey, as Steve Valiquette might call it, but it was fantastic. You have Connor Sheary going in on the forecheck, and he's been very good too, by the way. I think Sheary's going to make this team. We'll talk more about that a little bit later as well. But Sheary goes in aggressively on the forecheck. He chases the puck into the corner, and he gets there, and he makes like a pretty long backhand pass back behind the net to Noah Laba. So that was a great pass in its own right, but Noah Laba did him one better. Laba receives this pass and makes a one-touch I don't want to say no look because I think he knew Berard was there, but basically a one-touch backhand between the legs pass in front of the Islander net to Noah Laba. And Laba is able to shoot and score, Brett Berard is able to shoot and score and makes it 3-2 in favor of the Rangers. And in a perfect world, that would have been a game-winning goal for the Rangers in that situation. Unfortunately, we're living in an imperfect world, and it just obviously did not work out for the Rangers on this night because they ended up losing. But as good as that assist was, honestly, Laba came about this close to scoring a goal that I think would have been even more impressive. So basically, you've got a situation here where Laba moves the puck ahead to Trocheck, and then Trocheck passes the puck back to Laba. Trocheck passes to his left. Laba gets in to the front of the net, makes some ridiculous moves right there on the doorstep, not quite able to tuck it home while he was falling to the ice, and unfortunately just couldn't quite score. If he scores there, that's a highlight reel goal. And honestly, if he scores there, I think that might have been enough for him to make the team right then and there. Maybe a slight exaggeration, but I'm not sure it's much of one. He's been that good. And what I liked about this, first of all, this is also on the penalty kill. So they got Laba out there killing penalties as well. But the other thing I liked is he gets back up, and then not too long after this, a little bit later on his same shift, while the Rangers are shorthanded, you've got him skating the puck out of the Rangers zone and holding on to it for a little while in the neutral zone, bringing a couple defenders close to him, and then finally dumping it into the offensive zone. So a smart play there too, basically playing keep away for as long as he can, and then making the very simple play, just dumping it into the offensive zone while his team is shorthanded. But the other thing I've noticed, and some of you maybe have noticed this too, it feels like not only are us Ranger fans taking Laba very seriously and obviously taking notice about, how he's played so far, it feels like the Rangers themselves are also taking Laba quite seriously. We saw evidence of this right from the start of rookie camp. Obviously, Laba participated in that, and you got a couple of different practices, and you got the 2 games in the rookie series against the Flyers, and they've got Laba out there for the majority of that camp. And I believe in both of the 2 games against the Flyer rookies, they've got him centering the top line and playing between Brennan Othmann and Gabe Pro. Arguably the 2 biggest prospects on the Rangers, and arguably, certainly at least the 2 highest profile prospects on the Rangers, given that they were both former first rounders. And obviously the Rangers have big plans for the 2 of them as well. But they gave him that opportunity, and they're also giving him an opportunity here in the preseason because Laba has played in all 3 preseason games thus far. So they're giving him a long look, an extended look, and you got to figure that even if he does not make this team, that he's going to be in strong consideration to be one of the first couple of guys called up, whenever the Rangers need a jolt or somebody gets injured or whatever happens. And the other reason, as far as Laba making the opening night roster, again, we kind of touched on this a couple minutes ago, but there's no other obvious choices. I mean, you're basically looking, if it's not Laba, what is it? It's Parssinen or Brodzinski, right? And again, it's nothing against either one of those players, but when it comes to upside and, potential, use whatever word you want to use, I think Laba's got them beat, and there's a strong case to be made that even right now, maybe Laba's a better option even right now than either of the 2 of them. And it kind of pains me to say that because I'm a big Brodzinski fan. I like the fact that this guy stuck with it, played all these games in the AHL, finally became an NHL regular with the Rangers over the past couple of seasons, and it might go away just as quickly. But if Laba shows himself to be, the best option, then I think you owe it to yourself to strongly consider that. Now, one thing that's working against Laba, and this is of no fault of his own, but he is waiver exempt. Obviously, he's never played in the NHL, so the Rangers can send him to the Wolfpack without having to worry about him clearing waivers. You can't say the same thing for Parssinen or Brodzinski. If Laba makes a team, decent chance at least one of the 2 of them ends up on waivers, and if that happens, obviously there's the threat of them being claimed. But again, if Laba keeps playing like this, I don't see how you have a choice. I think that's just kind of a risk that you're going to have to take if you're the Rangers, potentially losing one of the other 2 on waivers. And one more thing that I want to throw out here as far as Noah Laba, because, I'm campaigning pretty hard for him to make the opening night roster, right? And there might be some people that say that, the everydayers, and think like, well, dude, you've been saying about how you want Gabe Pro to start this season in the AHL. Like, what's different with Laba and Perreault? And that is a fair point. I thought about that myself. I think the difference, there's 2 things really. For starters, and this is the lesser of the 2, but we'll start here. Laba has played 11 games with the Hartford Wolfpack this past season in the AHL. Now, not an enormous amount of games, but more than zero, more than none at all, right? So that's at least something. But I think more importantly, you look at the situation they're both in. Laba's a center, Perot is a right winger, at least predominantly for both of them. And again, that third line center spot for the Rangers, that's the biggest question mark. That's the biggest hole in the roster. That was the case coming in to training camp and the preseason and everything else. And that's still the case right now. Whereas Perot, I mean, sure, you could fit him on the roster and put him in one of the right wing spots if you like really, really wanted to. I mean, he's your, first round pick from a couple of years ago, and obviously one of your most highly thought of prospects, if not the most highly thought of prospects. So of course you could fit Pro on that roster, but there's no obvious like jump off the page kind of spot for him, kind of role for him like there is with Noah Laba with that third line center spot. So I'm sold. Give me Noah Laba on the opening night roster. I know we got 3 preseason games to go, whole bunch of practices as well, but loving what I'm seeing from Noah Laba, and judging from the comments I've seen from other Ranger fans, I'm certainly not alone there. So great stuff from Laba. In just a minute, though, we got to unfortunately switch our attention to some of the bad stuff. The Rangers basically just stinking out the joint when it comes to the third period. It's happened in at least 2 of the 3 preseason games. You could maybe say 3. We'll discuss that and try to figure out what's happening in the third period with the Rangers, and we will do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is the best because no matter how you like to bet, it's got something for you. Whether you're into player props or you like to build a same-game parlay or even jumping in live as the action is unfolding. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It is quick, it is easy, and it is the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers, a special, I guess, post-game edition of Locked On New York Rangers. And one thing we got to obviously spend some time on here is, dude, what's going on in the third period with this team? I mean, it is the preseason, fine, whatever, but, I mean, you can say that, and in some ways, as I mentioned in the last episode, that is the one saving grace here, but this is not good. This is not a good trend that the Rangers are establishing, preseason or not. To go through the gauntlet really quickly here, we had the preseason opener against the Devils. They were up by 3 goals in the third period. Now, they still won by 2 in that game, and that's all well and good, but it did get a little bit dicey near the end. You had Hoffman taking that 5-minute major penalty. You had another penalty after that. Just like that, there's a 5-on-3 advantage for the Devils. They score on that. They still got like a minute 30 or so to go in the game. They're still on the power play because the 5-minute major, as we know, does not end until 5 minutes expire. And the Devils are buzzing, and they're almost scoring again. And, they got the win, but just not closing with any kind of authority were the Rangers on that night. And then it got a lot worse in the third period against the Boston Bruins. The Rangers are up by 3 goals with less than 13 minutes to go. They are in total control of this game. They're even on the power play with less than 13 minutes to go, and they let the Bruins back into it with a shorthanded goal. Then the Bruins score again after that. And then with their goalie pulled, the Bruins scored again to force the game into overtime, and they won in overtime as well. So a trend being established here that the Rangers are not at their best in crunch time, and specifically the third period. And it continued again here tonight because you've got a 4-2 lead against the Islanders with about 13 minutes to go, almost exactly 13 minutes ago, when the Islanders cut the lead down to 4-3. And then they tie it at 4-4, and then they take the lead at 5-4. And you don't even make it to overtime. You're up by 2 goals with 13 minutes to play, and you lose in regulation. Not good. And look, there are extended circumstances here. There are things happening in the preseason right now that are certainly not going to be happening in the regular season, and I understand that. The Bruins, you look at their comeback against the Rangers, they were up against Talon Boyko, who is at best the 4th string goalie in the Ranger organization, and not many regulars played in that game for the Rangers either. Then you've got this game here. The Islanders did their big comeback against Dylan Garand, who's the 3rd string goalie in the organization. But there were more regulars out there for the Rangers, and this really should not have happened, and there's really no excuse for it happening. If we want to go goal by goal here, kind of break everything down, I mean, Garand really struggled in this third period, and, Quick played the first two periods, and I thought overall did well and made some good saves. Wasn't tested all that much, but obviously made the saves. But you've got the Islanders scoring to cut the Rangers lead to 4-3 in the third period against Garand. The guy goes up the left side and takes a shot, and Garand gets his, I think it was like his right shoulder on the near side on the puck, and the puck kind of just rolls up his arm, rolls down the back of his shoulder, lands right near the goal line, and trickles into the net. And just like that, it's 4-3. The one that really bothers me, though, because the other two you could probably put mostly on Garand, but this one that tied the game here, no excuse for this whatsoever. So you've got an offensive zone faceoff for the Islanders. And after the faceoff happened, I mean, they scored probably about 7 or 8 seconds later, and it just felt like nobody on the Rangers really wanted the puck. Nobody on the Rangers was really fighting for the puck. You get a couple of passes by the Islanders. All these Ranger players are just kind of reaching for the puck. We saw way too much of that last season. We don't need to go back to that this season. But, Fox is there. It looks like he can make a play. Edstrom and Susie, they were there. And collectively, the Rangers are just kind of reaching for the puck, and they all got outworked, and the Islanders tie the game with 4:38 to go. You can't be this asleep. You can't be this far back on your heels, and you can't be this uncompetitive. I mean, I'd like to say ever, but, lapses do happen every once in a while. These guys are all human, but it cannot happen in a situation like this late in the game. You are up by 1 goal here against your big division rival. I know it's the preseason, but it's still your big division rival, right? And you're trying to protect a 1-goal lead, and you basically get caught flat-footed and you get outworked. You cannot get outworked, efforted for the puck when you've got a 1-goal lead in less than 5 minutes to play. It can't happen, and especially in the defensive zone when you really need to be on your toes and make sure, you're doing the things that you need to do to support your goalie and, ultimately get a win. And that was terrible. That was a terrible goal, the goal that the Islanders tied the game with. Then you get the game winner, Palmieri up the left side into the Rangers zone. Maloney was making the point that they probably allowed Palmieri into the offensive zone a little bit too easily, and that is probably true. Pro had decent positioning, and Morrow was there, and Morrow did keep Palmieri on his backhand and kept him to the outside. And Palmieri just flicks a backhand shot at the net, and it gets right through Garand and goes in, and it's 5-4 with 3:46 to play in the game. This is a save that obviously needs to be made. This is also a really good time for me to point something out to a certain group of New York Ranger fans. And it's only a small group that says this, but you would not believe how many times I've seen, whether it's like somebody talking to me or leaving a comment in the YouTube section on one of these episodes or just talking about it on social media. There are Ranger fans. These people actually exist that believe that the Rangers should trade Igor Shesterkin and just go with Dylan Garand as a starting goalie. Igor Shesterkin, the guy that has established himself as probably the best big game playoff goalie in the NHL right now, and somebody that even in a down season this past season had the kind of year that I think a lot of goalies would like to have, and somebody that's, won the Vezina, and somebody who's been the best player in a couple of deep Ranger playoff runs. You want to trade that guy and give the reins to a dude who has never played a game in the NHL. Been called up a couple of times, but he's never played a game in the NHL. Okay. You saw what happened here tonight, right? I just think I saw what happened, and I'm not picking on Garand. I like Dylan Garand. I think he's got a bright future. I think eventually he will be the Ranger backup goalie whenever Quick decides to hang him up. But this idea that you can just give the reins to Dylan Garand and, oh, hey, they won't miss a beat. We'll save all this money and yada, yada. No, dude. Igor Shesterkins do not grow on trees. And I wish the contract was a little bit less expensive as well, but it is what it is. He got paid, and the Rangers need him. They definitely need him. So anyway, back to this whole issue with the Rangers collapsing in the third period here. Again, as far as like why and how this happened, they just didn't close, and they seemed to lose their edge, and they seemed to sit back in the defensive zone. They dominated this entire game, basically. I know the Islanders got up 2-0 somewhat. I mean, it wasn't that early. It was about like 14 or 15 minutes into the game. But that was just like 2 quick strikes by the Islanders. It wasn't because of like sustained pressure, or they weren't spending the entire period in the Ranger zone or anything like that. They got a couple of quick strikes, and they went up 2-0, and the Rangers obviously responded. I felt like the Rangers overall in this game were playing with more jump, more energy, more fire, more competitiveness. They were more opportunistic, and the proof was in the pudding when they had a 4-2 lead, and then they let everything fall apart by sitting back and losing their edge in the third period. And the other thing that I really didn't like here, even after the Islanders took the lead and made it 5-4, there were still almost 4 minutes left in the game when that happened. And, the Rangers, they got to get a goal. They got to tie it, right? And clock starts grinding down a little bit. They pulled their goalie with about 2:10 remaining in the game, and they never really even got anything that even resembled a decent scoring chance after that. You've got all your guys out there, all the guys that are, supposed to be able to produce offense in this kind of a situation in the game. And I don't know. I mean, they got the puck near the net a couple of times, but did anyone watching this really think that they had a lot of jump at the end of this game? Did anyone watching this really feel that they were about to score on any of these instances here? Because I really didn't. And you never know what can happen. It only takes one chance. But the Rangers did not look good at all, I thought, when they were trailing by a goal in the final few minutes of this game. And I'll say one more thing here that I said at the end of the Bruins game. If this is a regular season game right now, we are all completely sick to our stomachs. And not only that, but this would be the second straight terrible loss in a row. I mean, it is the second straight terrible loss in a row, but obviously the one thing that you have to kind of fall back on here is it's the preseason and the games don't count. To me, it's never too early to establish some good habits and not develop bad ones. This is a bad habit that the Rangers have developed because 3 games right now, they have not closed with any authority. They've had these games in the bag, and they've got 1 win instead of 3. And in the last 2 games in particular, blown multiple goal leads in the third period. Not good, and it's something that they need to fix. They need to fix this as soon as, I think it's Monday, they play the Islanders again. They need a strong third period. Whatever is happening, whether they're up, they're down, they're tied, whatever, I kind of hope they're up because I want to see a situation where they can protect a lead in the third period, but they need a strong third period in that game. It needs to happen as soon as the next preseason game against the Islanders because this cannot go on like this. You cannot establish this bad of a habit this early in the season, preseason or no preseason. So in just a minute, we're going to shift our attention to some of the position battles, the roster battles that are underway with the Rangers. There are so many forwards that are gunning for that opening night roster spot, and it really does feel like it's wide open. So we're going to break down the competition there in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers by talking a little bit about these position battles. And specifically, we're going to look at the forwards right now. I said on Twitter while this game was unfolding that you could probably make a case for at least 17 different Ranger forwards to be given a spot in the opening night lineup. And there's only 12 spots to go around for the forwards, obviously. So it got me thinking a little bit more about this. And I figured once this game's over, I'll really sit down, I'll map it out, and we'll see how many forwards there really are gunning for these spots here. So as we've said all along, there are 6 bona fide locks to be in the opening night lineup for the New York Rangers. You've got Cooley, you got JT Miller, you got Mika, you got Panarin, you got Trocheck, you got Lafreniere. And all 6 of those guys are going to be out there on opening night. There's no doubt about it, barring an injury or anything completely crazy happening. But those 6 will be there. The other 2 that I have as locks to at least make the team, not necessarily be out there dressed on opening night, but they'll make the team, are Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe. And the reason for that is because the 2 of them are no longer waiver exempt. The Rangers are not going to put either Edstrom or Rempe on waivers and risk one or both of them being claimed by a different team. So for that reason, got to believe the 2 of them will at least be on the opening night roster. I'm not either one of them could be a healthy scratch or both of them could be a healthy scratch on opening night, but they will at the very least be on the roster. But still, they'll be on the roster. But now we're up to 8 forwards at this point. The 6 that are locks and these 2, Rempe and Edstrom. So beyond that, you could also make a case for any of these guys, I think, being in the opening night lineup as far as Ranger forwards are concerned. You got Sam Carrick, you got Juuso Parssinen, you got Johnny Brodzinski, you've got Taylor Radish, you've got Connor Sherry, Gabe Perreault, Brian Othman, Brett Berard, Noah Laba, who we just talked about for quite some time a couple of minutes ago, and maybe Dylan Robrick. He might be the one in this group that's a little bit of a stretch and a true long shot to make it, but let's include him because it's more fun that way. I just named a total of 18 forwards. There are 12 spots. There are some very, very, very difficult decisions coming for the New York Rangers. And we're only halfway through the preseason, and these players can settle it themselves by, standing out one way or another in this game or in that game, the preseason games that are still on the way. But of those 18 forwards I just mentioned, like other than maybe Robrick, which one of them deserves like no consideration whatsoever? And I wouldn't even put Robrick into that if I'm being honest. But like, who can you truly rule out? Who there has no chance of making the opening night roster and being in the opening night lineup? I think they all at least have a shot at it. Some better shots than others, of course, but they've all got a shot out of it. And, the other thing too is that you watch a game like this, and there were so many examples of some of the players that I just mentioned. Not all of them played in this game, obviously, but so many of these players really took the bull by the horns, really took advantage of their opportunities in some instances, produce offensively. In other instances, maybe, had a strong showing on the penalty kill or made a big hit, something along those lines. All these guys, it felt like, at least all of them that were in the lineup had their moment at one point or another in this game. We talked about Noah Laba. We'll refer you to the first section of this episode because I think we talked for about 10 or 11 minutes about Laba. But then you look at somebody like Brian Othman, and some people were kind of concerned about that preseason opening game against the Devils where he really looked shaky and kept fumbling the puck, and obviously had the 5-minute major as well. But he scored in this game on an absolute snipe, and that's what you want to see from Brian Othman. He was also mixing it up after the play, got into some shoving matches. He plays as some bleep you, as JT Miller has been saying the Rangers need to play with. And, Othman scoring that goal in this game, hopefully that gets him to exhale a little bit, maybe stop gripping the stick so tight. He's somebody that's used to scoring goals, and he obviously didn't do it at all for the Rangers this past season, so maybe that gets him going a little bit. He actually came pretty close to scoring a second goal in this game. We had Lafreniere passing in deep to Othman, and Othman just missed being able to stuff it in from the doorstep. But a good night for Brian Othman. We also had somebody like Matt Rempe. Again, he will make the team. Not sure if he'll be out there on opening night or not. He could be a healthy scratch. But, he's out here winning races to pucks, and then he ends up screening on the power play goal that was scored by Brian Othman. And, yeah, that's my hill, man. Matt Rempe, if he's on this, well, he's going to be on the team. But if he's in the lineup, this dude should be out there on the second power play unit. There is not a goalie in this league that wants to deal with Matt Rempe in front of him during a power play for the opposition. There's just no way. And if you watch the replay of Othman's goal, you can see Rempe there. He's in the crease the entire time, the entire like for 10 straight seconds before Othman scored. Rempe's just standing there, and the goalie is having a heck of a time trying to see around him. He's looking this way. He's looking that way. He can't see around this guy. This guy's as big as a house. Like, what's he supposed to do? And very clearly, Othman might have scored anyway, but the goalie did not react. He did not react, and he was screened. He couldn't see the shot. That's all because of Matt Rempe. So an unofficial assist for Rempe on that play. But I've been impressed by Rempe. I know Sullivan has as well. The fact that he's winning races to pucks, and there was a situation where he won the race to a puck behind the Islander net tonight, and then he passed out in front. That resulted in a pretty good scoring chance. Thought Rempe really played well. Connor Sheary, guy's been all over the ice. He is playing like his NHL career depends on it, because in a way, I guess it does. He's on a PTO. Now, if he doesn't make the Rangers, he could always sign on with some other team. That's at least possible. But, this is somebody that spent pretty much all of last season in the AHL and Tampa Bay's organization. I didn't realize this until just a couple of days ago. Basically, Sheary and the Lightning, he had another year left on his contract, and they basically mutually agreed to terminate the contract because he spent basically the entire last season in the AHL. I think he only played like 5 games with Tampa, and he was in the AHL for the entire rest of the season. So he walked away from, I think it was like $1.5 million in his salary to get a fresh start and be in a situation where nothing is agreed upon as far as him making the team. But Connor Sheary is going to make this team. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. Mike Sullivan was talking very, very highly about Sheary. I think it was before this game. He had a quote. What did he say? He was like, he's like a dog on a bone when it comes to him trying to get to the loose puck. And you can see that. And Sheary's out there, busting his tail. We talked about the great secondary assist that he had on the goal that was scored by Brett Berard. He's done great. So Sheary, I think he's going to figure out a way to make this team as well. And Gabe Perreault, he may not have stood out quite as much in this one as he did in the other two, but he made some really nice plays. There was a situation where at the end of the period, Gabe Perreault chases the puck down in the neutral zone along the boards there, and he knows that time is running down, and he sees Mika going into the offensive zone, and Perreault had chipped the puck to the boards in the neutral zone, and then chipped the puck again back to the center of the ice to lead Mika Zibanejad into the offensive zone. Now, Mika was denied on the doorstep, but still a great play by Gabe Perreault there. Like, it's crazy thinking about how many different forwards, and there's more I could talk about, but we're running out of time here. There's so many young forwards, or even a couple of veterans mixed in there as well, and many of them have played very, very well. I mean, I know that, looking at how the Rangers lost this game, that's obviously not ideal, but there were a ton of positives to take out of this as well. Not the least of which, obviously, is that there is some fierce competition going on for those bottom 6 roster spots as far as the forwards are concerned. It's funny how, like, certain seasons, everything seems pretty much set in stone. There's maybe like 1 or 2 position battles at best. And then you get seasons like this where there's like 6 spots as far as the forwards are concerned up for grabs. It's been fun to watch, and definitely looking forward to tracking it moving forward as well. But we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17, and definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.